Our keynote address today will be delivered by none other than Vanita Gupta. Vanita Gupta is the 19th United States Associate Attorney General and serves as the third ranking official at the Department of Justice. Her group that she supervises includes multiple litigation divisions, including the Civil Division, the Criminal Rights Division, the Antitrust Division, the Tax Division, and the Environmental and Natural Resources Division. Vanita is a very busy person. She also oversees the grant-making component of the department, including the Office of Justice Programs, the Office of Violence Against Women, and the Office of Community-Oriented Policing Services, and supervises the Office of Information Policy, the Community Relations Service, the Executive Office of the United States Trustees, and the Foreign Claims Settlement Commission. I have the distinct privilege and honor of bringing her to the stage, but I will tell you this. I have heard the Associate Attorney General speak many times, and every time it is just an honor and pleasure to be in the audience. As you know, we're talking about someone that has extreme level of expertise in the area of criminal justice. And we're just honored and privileged to have you as our keynote speaker. So would everyone please give a round of applause to the Associate Attorney General, Vanita Gupta.
Thank you, Justin, for that introduction. A little worried that you set expectations very high, so we'll try not to go down from here. And thank you also to Chair-elect Tina Longo and to the entire ABA Criminal Justice Section for inviting me here today. And also congratulations to the honorees that will be receiving their awards for their work in advancing equity and public safety for all. The theme of this year's conference, Criminal Justice Next, Solutions to Move Equity and Fairness Forward, really could not be more timely. George Floyd's murder and the ensuing global racial justice protests, the pandemic, and a rise in violent crime, particularly in gun violence, have really renewed a necessary and urgent conversation in this country about community police trust, equal justice, and public safety. Equal justice demands a criminal justice system where all people are treated fairly and equitably, and where people can feel safe and protected in their communities. It requires addressing long-standing inequities in our systems of justice. And it demands partnership among a broad set of stakeholders, government officials, law enforcement, including sheriffs who run most of our jails, the courts, crime victim organizations, justice-impacted individuals, prosecutors, defense attorneys, nonprofit organizations, and service providers. Really in recognition that we cannot separate challenges in the justice system from challenges in access to healthcare, jobs, and education. And these challenges have uniquely impacted low-income communities, communities of color, and those with mental health and substance use disorders. As an agency with over 115,000 federal law enforcement personnel, prosecutors, civil rights attorneys, and professionals that administer close to $5 billion in grants to local and state justice systems and community initiatives, really across the country, we at the Justice Department know that we cannot have public safety without trust. Trust between the police and the communities they serve, and trust that our institutions will push for fairness where it's lacking. Earlier this week, I had the opportunity to travel to Miami-Dade County, where a groundbreaking initiative is challenging the more typical criminal justice approach to people with behavioral health disorders and really producing impressive public safety and community health outcomes. For too long, our nation's jails have been warehouses for people with behavioral health disorders. And initiatives like those in Miami-Dade involving all stakeholders really beg us to be more creative and data-driven to save lives, taxpayer dollars, and precious law enforcement resources for fighting violent crime. And so I want to speak today a little bit more about this initiative as well as other innovations that the Justice Department is learning from and supporting in our shared quest for equity and public safety. For years, we have dealt with behavioral health disorders as really only a criminal justice problem, expecting law enforcement to intervene using the limited tools of arrest and incarceration, sometimes cycling individuals in and out of our jails countless times. And indeed, our state and local law enforcement partners have repeatedly told us that change is needed because they alone cannot shoulder the responsibility of addressing the needs of people in crisis. People with mental illnesses in the United States are 10 times more likely to be incarcerated than they are to be hospitalized. 70% of individuals in our nation's jails have at least one diagnosed mental illness. And we know that communities of color are more likely to experience disparities in accessing mental health care, but are less likely to be served by diversion and treatment programs. And these are problems that cannot and should not be solved by the criminal justice system alone. The seeds of what is now known as the Miami model were planted more than 2 decades ago by state court judge Stephen Leifman, who visited the Miami-Dade jail. I see some heads nodding, and I hope one day you should invite him to come speak at one of these conferences because I understand how much collaboration happens here. But the Miami-Dade County Jail, which is the largest psychiatric facility in the state of Florida, he visited the jail as a judge and saw simply that the system was not working for individuals in crisis, and they were struggling with their mental health. He launched the Criminal Mental Health Project in 2000 with the goal of diverting individuals that were accused of misdemeanors who have mental health or substance use disorders from the criminal justice system to community-based treatment and services. And the program has since expanded to include individuals who are arrested for lower-level felonies. The project takes a 360-degree, all-hands-on-deck approach. It's not just an alternative court or a diversion program. It's really a system that requires engagement from a wide spectrum of stakeholders. During my visit this week, I sat down with judges who preside over cases in problem-solving courts. I talked to peer recovery specialists and healthcare providers, and I toured a new treatment facility with the state's attorney. Our team also met with the Miami, Miami Beach, Miami-Dade police departments, with corrections staff, with officials from the Florida Department of Children and Families, and the Miami-Dade County Public Defender. In short, we saw partnerships that were necessary for equal justice in action and in real time. The project includes both pre-booking and post-booking diversion programs. In the first, the project has trained over 8,000 police officers for 40 hours each to serve on crisis intervention teams responding to calls that are involving people with mental health crises. Officers are trained to recognize signs and symptoms of mental illness and to de-escalate encounters and respond appropriately, often with mental health professionals alongside. And in some cases, this means offering an individual treatment instead of arrest or jail. The judges and program administrators were clear about the post-booking diversion program. There is no wrong door for a referral. They also include a box to check on the arrest form if police officers suspect mental illness and use a screening tool in the jail to assess clinical eligibility for the program. Individuals who qualify get mental health treatment, a peer navigator, and who helps with food, clothing, and housing assistance, with a chance to come out at the end without a conviction on their record. And perhaps most importantly, a person's support team stays with them for a year after their case is over. So thanks to these programs, the average daily jail population in Miami-Dade dropped almost 40%, saving the county $39 million annually and with no attendant increase in crime. I also had the opportunity to tour the new, in fact, it's still under construction, Miami Center for Mental Health and Recovery, a mental health diversion and treatment facility meant to be a one-stop shop for individuals with serious mental illnesses involved in or at stake of becoming involved in the criminal justice system. It's not a jail, and it is so much more than a hospital. Even as an active construction site, it is really a reflection of a concerted effort to recognize the humanity and dignity of every person who may someday become a patient or resident. It will have 208 beds. There will be a primary care physician and a dentist's office alongside intensive psychiatric care with the aim of meeting all of our individual's health needs in one place. Too often, we try the same things over and over and expect different results. And the Miami Center really envisions a new way to tackle a persistent problem by recognizing that some individuals in our communities need intensive assistance, and without it, they may simply become repeat players in the criminal justice system to no productive end. The Criminal Mental Health Project has incorporated federal funding that was made available through the American Rescue Plan, as well as grant funding, including the Justice Department's Justice and Mental Health Collaboration Program. My visit there, alongside senior leaders in the Justice Department's Bureau of Justice Assistance, is really an example of two-way conversations that we at the Justice Department are having on criminal justice reform and equity issues. While we distribute our grant funds around the country, we are also constantly learning from local innovation that can drive more effective approaches to persistent nationwide problems. Beyond learning from the Miami model, the Justice Department is also supporting efforts to increase access to mental health services and diversion opportunities. First, grants. The Justice Department's Office of Justice Programs recently awarded close to $13 million through our Justice and Mental Health Collaboration Program. Since 2006, JMHCP has funded nearly 680 programs across 49 states and 2 U.S. territories with the goal of improving cross-system collaboration and responses to people with mental illnesses who come into contact with the criminal justice system. Grantees include states, local governments, and federally recognized Indian tribes that are looking to reduce incarceration for people with behavioral health needs whenever that's appropriate, to improve connection to care for people who are incarcerated, and at the point of reentry, reduce recidivism and improve public safety and health outcomes. Connect and Protect is another grant program that's specifically designed to help law enforcement and behavioral health agencies work together to improve law enforcement responses to people with behavioral health needs. This includes, as I mentioned, is happening in Miami, implementing diversion programs at the point of contact with law enforcement. For example, co-responder teams, outreach to unhoused individuals, mobile crisis teams, and crisis intervention systems. In FY22, we gave out $15.4 million in Connect and Protect grants, and we're supporting community and co-responder models in other ways. Last fall, I participated in a Taking the Call conference where the Justice Department hosted attendees from all 50 states and around the world to discuss and share promising practices around crisis response and help inform how we further support communities who want to explore such models going forward. Beyond our grants, our U.S. Attorney's offices are supporting and participating in specialty and problem-solving courts across the country. In the Eastern District of Pennsylvania, the strategies that result in developing emotional stability program known as STRIDES started as a pilot project over a decade ago. Now permanent, STRIDES is an alternative or problem-solving court that's designed to address the needs of individuals diagnosed with severe and persistent mental illness. The STRIDES case team is comprised of 2 magistrate judges who oversee the program, representatives from the U.S. Attorney's Office, the Federal Community Defenders, Private Defense Counsel, U.S. Pretrial Services, and U.S. Probation. And here again, the partnerships that are necessary for equal justice. It's folks from different parts of the system working together towards better outcomes for individuals and ultimately for our communities. The District of Utah is home to the nation's first federal mental health court, Reentry Independence Through Sustainable Efforts, or RISE. And there too, it's stakeholders across the system that make it work. From different parts of the Justice Department, including the U.S. Attorney's Office and Bureau of Prisons, to judges, defense attorneys, and community partners who provide classes and supports to participants and their families. The District of Utah is also home to the first federal veterans court in the nation. It's a well-regarded drug court and a tribal court also that our assistant United States attorneys travel for 5 hours to get to, which I think is really a testament to the value that they see in this program. Of course, we also use our Civil Rights Enforcement Authority when necessary. And I want to highlight an investigation that we announced just yesterday by the Civil Rights Division into the state of Oklahoma, Oklahoma City, and Oklahoma City Police Department. The investigation will examine whether Oklahoma fails to provide community-based mental health services to people in Oklahoma County, leading to unnecessary admissions to psychiatric facilities and police contact. And the investigation will also examine Oklahoma City's systems for responding to people experiencing behavioral health crises, including through the 911 call center and the Oklahoma City Police Department. So our work to promote public safety in our communities and fairness in the justice system extends, of course, beyond behavioral health innovations. I want to just take a minute to broaden the lens and mention just a few other areas of work. I know this group discussed the President's executive order on advancing effective, accountable policing and criminal justice practices to enhance trust in public safety. It's quite a mouthful. I actually could have filled my entire allotted time today talking about the 92 plus deliverables that the EO sets out for the Justice Department. It's focusing on everything from the need to improve our data collection on use of force, to accreditation for police agencies, to policies on body-worn cameras, no-knock warrants, chokeholds, officer wellness, recruitment, and retention. But one particular provision of the EO establishes a Federal Alternatives Reentry Committee. The ARC, as we call it, brings together more than 24 agencies and officials from across the federal government to think creatively about 3 pillars. 1, safely reducing unnecessary criminal justice interactions. 2, supporting rehabilitation during incarceration. And 3, facilitating reentry for people who have been imprisoned or impacted by the criminal justice system. The ARC responds to calls from law enforcement, from local officials, from civil rights advocates for smarter interagency coordination at the federal level in recognition, really, that we can no longer continue to place social problems solely at the feet of police and ignore the important role that other systems play, including education, health, and employment. We're also keenly focused on using our grant programs to support and encourage innovative, locally grown, community-led approaches to fighting violent crime and gun violence. We recently announced investments totaling $100 million to reduce community violence, including new funding dedicated to community violence intervention programs. These programs take a hyper-local, evidence-informed approach, employing credible messengers in local communities to work directly in their own communities with individuals at the highest risk of experiencing or perpetuating violence. And we are supporting these efforts, even beyond direct funding, by providing funding and assistance through intermediaries to build the capacity of smaller organizations. And we're offering technical aid to jurisdictions that don't receive federal funding and investing in research and evaluation to better understand what works to reduce violence. We also recently announced $57 million in grants to support justice system reforms, racial equity, and efforts to address wrongful convictions. That includes $3 million under the new Reimagining Justice Initiative, which is aimed at funding the development and testing of new innovative approaches to improving community safety and trust. The grantee is a project called the Newark Public Safety Collaborative, empowering community organizations to become co-producers of public safety, which really seeks to democratize the use of data and analytics and empower community organizations to become their own producers and co-producers with law enforcement of public safety. And the result will be a coordinated response between community-based organizations and law enforcement working towards a common goal of public safety and crime prevention. So to bring things full circle from where I started, these grants are really an example to the Justice Department's commitment to listen to the field, to learn from our state and local partners, and fund and support community-driven, community-led solutions. I want to close by thanking you for engaging in the important conversations that you've been having over the past 2 days and thinking deeply and creatively about equal justice and public safety. We have much urgent work to do to keep our communities safe and build trust and greater fairness in our justice systems. The status quo won't work, and the Justice Department remains tirelessly committed to fulfilling our founding responsibilities to protect our democracy and our communities, to uphold the rule of law, and to ensure equal justice under law. Thank you all for your partnership in these efforts.